over how Jeep was originally created, which it's kind of murky because other companies have actually taken credit for the Jeep, like Willys and Ford both have taken credit for it. Right here we have a poster that actually was put up in schools and such so that you can do like a scrap metal drive to help purchase a Jeep. And the kids would actually go and they have prices for whatever they need for the Jeep. So if you raise that much, you buy that part for the Jeep. If you raise this much, you buy another part. It just gets really, really cool. And this is actually how children help with the war effort, by getting scrap metal, turning it in, and getting money and turning it into a school to buy a Jeep. All right, thank you very much. That's about it. All right, the Army's original requirements for a reconnaissance vehicle was actually for a minimum height of 36 inches, maximum weight to be between 750 pounds to 1,000 pounds. They want it to be very, very light, a quarter-ton truck basically. An adequate cross-country ability and grade ability equal to that of a standard cargo vehicle, which would, at that time, they had these great big semis that they would drive across-country. They also wanted a caliber 30 machine gun mount, either integral with the body of the vehicle, and they wanted it detachable as well. Capacity, they needed a crew of at least 2 men, and 1 machine gun with accessories, and 3,000 rounds of ammunition or the equivalent weight of such. They also needed an armored face shield for the driver, which is actually a lawyer's technique, so that it wouldn't go into the hands of another group of the military. Really smart. They also wanted a four-wheel drive, except for tricycles are concerned, of course, like motorcycles with a sidecar. And they wanted ground clearance with the maximum possible, consistent, and desired silhouette. At first, they came out with the Howie weapons carrier, aka the belly flopper, which of course had a very low silhouette. It had cross-country abilities and would have been great for the war effort if it hadn't been for the engine they put in it, which was really, really sucky. Pre-American involvement in World War II, because they tried staying out of it, but they realized it would eventually come to them. Bianchon tried since '38 to interest the Army in the recon vehicles that they had. Lobbyist Harry Payne and Army Quartermaster Technical Committee, and then to the Secretary of War, Lieutenant Steve Herbert, who was actually not a lieutenant colonel at all, according to the history of Bianchon Jeep. And a sudden access victory in May and June of 1940 kickstarted the research and development of war goods. They started realizing that the horse or a donkey and a mule with a cart, and also people just pulling carts around, would not actually do a very good job in modernized warfare. They were still stuck back in World War I. And since this happened, they decided they were going to take a second look at advanced vehicles. The dumbed down version of the requirements, take 2 of course, was they wanted a 4x4, they wanted at least 40 horsepower, no more than 1,300 pounds, and they of course wanted a reconnaissance car. They wanted to be able to carry their generals around, they wanted to be able to go scouting to make sure where the other people are at, the enemies. And they also wanted to haul soldiers, heavy artillery. They were actually able to haul airplanes with this. Started going down the runway. They started hauling great big trailers, I guess you want to call them, full of nothing but artillery, people, and they also used it for hauling goods that they need. And they also needed a working prototype in 49 days. People, 49 days. Do you realize how long it takes for a normal vehicle, a modern vehicle of today, to be developed? An entire year before the next one comes out, right? They have an entire year to get everything hammered out and working. They had one in 49 days. People involved in the prototype, since this decided to go ahead and go, was the lobbyist Harry Payne, who tried since '38 to get people to figure it out. Specs were by Harold Christ, engineer for Bianchon and factory manager, and Robert F. Brown, civilian engineer assigned to the QMC at Camp Hilleberg. He was also a doctor, by the way. Designer Carl Probst and a small crew, meaning him and maybe 3 or 4 people. And builders Christ, Ralph Turner, and Chester Hempfling were all working on it. Only these people were working on this, day and night. And they actually built it in 45 days, beating out Willys for this. They had 139 auto manufacturer companies working for this non-stop, trying to figure it out. And only 2 car manufacturers came up to the challenge, Willys and Bantam Motor Company. And the only reason that they built Bantam beat out Willys is because they made it in 45 instead of 49. They rolled out a Butler, Pennsylvania factory under its own power in September of 1940, and drove it to Hilleberg 250 miles in 3 days, untested and with an unbroken engine. What you don't realize is most vehicles that come out today, and if you build one, you actually have to break in the engine. It has a special oil that you have to use, and you have to change that out afterwards. You have to get up to a certain RPM, keep that at that temperature for a while, so that you know it's going to work. And they drove it 250 miles to be tested for 30 days with an unbroken engine, and they didn't know if it was actually going to run. And the Army tested it for 30 days, and it was a great hit. Everybody loved it, and of course, everybody that Bantam tried to get to go on with this project thought it was their idea afterwards. Death of Bantam. The contract was actually taken from Bantam due to no patent. And that's the only reason, basically, today that you don't see Bantam on the road doing anything. The contract was given to Willys, the MB, that's their model they came out with, and then to Ford Motor Company, which they had the GPW. Parts were both interchangeable between the two, but of course Ford had their name on everything. And Bantam was given the first order of 2,675 cars, which they did on time and gave to the company. They produced Jeep cargos, trailers, torpedo motors, and such until they closed in 1956. They did not make another vehicle besides